Hello my dear learners, welcome you all to my today's online class. First of all, let me talk about myself. I am Protap Sharma. I have been working as a lecturer of English at Shimulbari, Bangabandhu Degree College. My dear learners, today the topic we are going to learn is voice change. So, this is a common item for us. Let me talk about a little bit about voice sense first. What is a voice sense? Actually, there are two types of voice. Active and passive. We have two types of voice. In our everyday situation or in our everyday life, we speak sentences. The sentences we speak in our daily life, most of the sentences are in the active voice. There are some situations where we use passive voice. So, the use of passive voice is very limited in our life. So, passive voice is basically used in certain situations, and the situations are very much, what should I say? The situations are very much limited. So, dear students, I will talk about how to make passive voice from active voice. So, in order to make passive sentence, we have to remember this core rule. That is, you have to put to be verb and you have to put past participle form of the verb. So here the question comes naturally, what is a to be verb? I will talk about it later on. Let me talk about the changes. How many changes happen while you make passive sentences from active sentences? So we actually make 5 changes in order to make passive voice. 5 changes are, you have to put the object of an active voice as a subject in the passive voice. Then you have to choose a verb, auxiliary verb, according to the subject. So, our active voice is he makes a mistake. So, we have add here a mistake. Then, as we have simple sentence here, so we use here is. Then, we have to use past participle form of the main verb. So, we have made here as a main verb. So, the past participle form of the verb is made. Then the subject of the active voice will become the object of the passive voice, and before the object we have to use by. But one thing I like to say here, using object is not mandatory in all the time, because there are some situations when we may omit objects. Okay, let me talk about what is to be verb, or how do you use to be verb in making passive sentences. If you have present simple tense in the active voice, you have to use am, is, are, then the past participle form of the verb. Then, if you have past simple tense, if you have past simple in the active voice, then you have to make was or were. You have to put was or were, then the past participle form of the verb. Then, if you have continuous tense in the active voice, continuous means, it may be present continuous or past continuous. If you have continuous in the active voice, you need to put be after the continuous form in order to make passive sentence. If you have perfect tense. It may be either present perfect or past perfect. You have to put, or future perfect. You have to put an extra word, that is being, in making passive voice. If you have modal auxiliaries, you know what are those? Shall, should, can, may, might. If you have modal auxiliaries in the active voice, in that case you will have to use be in case of passive voice. And after all these to be verbs, you have to put past participle form of the main verb. So past participle form of the main verb is a mandatory, is a must. So dear students, let's deal with some more examples. Suppose we have a sentence like, he may be helped. He may help you. This is an active voice. We have modal auxiliary here, may. So in case of passive voice or in doing passive voice, you have to just use extra be, then the main the past participle form of the main verb. We have help here as a main verb, so we are making it helped, and then then the object, the subject becomes the object. So in this way you have to make passive voice. Dear students, as I was talking about by plus object, this is not mandatory in some cases. Let me talk about what are those cases. If you have subject like people, everybody, everyone, or any subject that is easily understandable, in that case you may omit the subject. In case of passive voice, you may omit it. Let's see an example. People call him Einstein. So students, we have people as subject in the active voice. We have people as subject. So we can omit this subject in making passive voice. So the passive voice is he. We have two objects here, him and Einstein. You may not know, students, if you have object and complement in a sentence, in that case you have to use, or you have to take the pronoun object as the subject in the passive voice. So we have present indefinite tense, he is called Einstein. So we have omitted the subject in the active voice. We have omitted it in case of passive voice, as we have people as the subject. Here one thing I would like to share. If you have two objects in the active voice, for example, he gave me a gift. So we have two objects here, me and a gift. In that case, in making passive voice, you can take either of them. You may take the pronoun object or you may take the noun object. No problem with it whatsoever. But if you take the noun object, as a subject in the passive voice, in that case you will have to put an extra preposition before the pronoun object. Let me write down the passive voice. A gift is given to me by him. So as I have taken a gift as the subject in the passive voice, so in case of me I have given a preposition to. But if you take the pronoun object as the subject in the passive voice, you do not need to put extra to. I am given a gift by him. So the thing is, if you have two objects in the active voice, you may take either of them in the passive voice. But if you have object and complement, like in the example, people call him Einstein. How do you identify complement? How can you distinguish object from complement? That is a big question. In order to identify it, you can just you can give an equal sign. If the him and Einstein is the same person, then you have to guess it. You can assume that we have him here, we have Einstein. Him and Einstein, they two are the same person. That is why we call it Einstein. We call the word Einstein is an complement. So if you have complement in the active voice, in that case you cannot use the complement as the subject in the passive voice, because complement cannot be used as the subject of the passive voice. So if you can remember all those things I have discussed so far, I think you will be able to do this particular item very successfully. That is all about my today's discussion. If you have any question or queries regarding my presentation, you can leave your comment into the comment box. Thank you all. See you in the next class.